find salvation.
The good news is that no matter how you slice it, Diablo Immortal offers a ton of gameplay without the need to spend any money. The bad news is that the value proposition for any money you do spend feels incredibly low, and yet paying is one of the only ways to be competitive with other players. I've largely enjoyed my time with Diablo Immortal to date, but unless it sees some significant changes, I don't think it's a game I'll play heavily long term. The early going is a heap of fun. The first 30 or so levels establishes a breakneck pace, with ding after ding as you grow in power, rank up your gear, unlock new skills, and find out more about the latest existential threat to Sanctuary, largely via series mascot Deckard Cain.
For a new evil covets the World Stone's power.
This forward momentum is helped a great deal by the rhythm of combat, which is quintessential Diablo, thanks to a solid array of skills and the palpable power of being able to cut through most opposition with ease. The moment-to-moment gameplay feels great, whether you're using touch controls as I did, or a controller tethered to an iOS or Android device. For both, all your key inputs are within easy reach, and it's really satisfying being able to aim and move independently. That said, I had significant problems on iPad, with frequent crashes, a number of small one-off and persistent bugs, and missing audio in dialogue and cutscenes. Here, as Australia's Michael Winslow, let me take care of it. Meanwhile, on PC, it's still in open beta. Using a keyboard and mouse generally feels good, but it's a pretty basic port at the moment. You can't change the resolution, for instance, and I had nothing but issues trying to get a controller to work reliably. Immortal gets its classes right. I've primarily been playing Necromancer since launch, but all 6 classes have fun, synergistic gameplay options to explore, helped along by a solid legendary inscription system that lets you radically change how skills work. You may decide to turn your army of skeletons into a single skeletal captain that can be ordered to whirlwind at a location. Or you may decide to curse enemies so that they explode on death, clearing the way for sweet corpse explosion chains. And the more inscriptions you collect, the more you can mould your skills to suit your playstyle. Immortal has a story it wants to tell.
Stay a while. The two of us have much to discuss.
But its MMO-style backbone means you'll have to grind through a succession of level gates to make progress along it.
Death is quite the teacher.
Grinding here is all about taking on bite-sized goals like bounties, running dungeons and other short challenges like Elder Rifts, finding monstrous essence and completing pop-up events in the overworld, and taking part in activities on behalf of the Shadow or Immortal factions. It's simple to play with other people too, whether that's grouping with friends or finding a party to run a dungeon with. Immortal will even connect you with nearby players to create impromptu groups for things like hidden lairs or bounties. The MMO focus really comes through in other places too. There are always other players around, which is nice because of how bustling the world feels, but they can really get in the way when you're trying to farm elites and grind for XP, and their presence can make even the most serious of story moments utterly comedic.
Wait! It's inside me! Look around!
Speaking of which, Immortal's story is set after Diablo 2's Lord of Destruction, and is centered around the shards of the Shattered World Stone,
An artifact with the power to create entire realities.
and the rise of a powerful demon named Skarn. It's serviceable enough as a means to move us along from zone to zone before hitting the end game, but I can't say I found much of it particularly memorable.
Are you going, are you? Okay, see ya.
The stories told through side quests are especially banal and repetitive, and almost always amount to glorified fetch quests. The storytelling may not be anything to write home about, but the art direction certainly is. No, many of the models don't look great when you zoom in, real 3DFX voodoo vibes here, but I love Immortal's moody take on Sanctuary, and every environment feels like a genuinely distinct place. There's no confusing the dark and foreboding Ashfold Cemetery with the desecrated temples and epic outlooks of Mount Zavain, or the lava glow and macabre touches of the hellish Realm of Damnation. The dungeons are generally extensions of their settings too, and have some interesting set pieces, such as Kikarus Rapids in Bilefen, which has you rafting down a river fighting off waves of fetishes, or Tomb of Fahir in Shasar Sea, which has a deadly elevator ride and an enormous spider that must be taken out limb by limb.
Vengeful spirits, heed my call!
The dungeon bosses, however, are laughably easy unless you're deliberately punching up in difficulty. They rarely call on you to do much more than get out of the way of telegraphed attacks. For the most part, they're there to drop loot, as are the bosses that pop up in the overworld. Immortal's PvE combat in general, in fact, is clearly meant to be fun as opposed to challenging, to let you slice and dice your way through hordes of enemies and fell towering monstrosities. Of course, there are places to test your strength and skill, such as the escalating difficulty of the Challenge Rifts and Path of Blood trials, but these give you little incentive to replay completed challenges that sit at your ideal difficulty level. Instead, you push as far as you can, then have to come back once you've raised your combat rating further. PvP also promises stiff competition, but as we'll get to soon, this is where Diablo Immortal's can of corpse worms really spills out and all over the floor. Itemization in Diablo Immortal is pretty convoluted, but there are a few key things to know. Each item can be ranked up, and ranks can be transferred anytime you swap new gear in, so you never lose that progress. Plus, items earn new attributes at certain ranks along the way, which can then be re-rolled with reforged stones. The most contentious part of all this is the legendary gem system, as these have the potential to be a powerful part of any build. The problem is they're behind an incredibly steep paywall, which means that sure, you might have some 1 or 2 star legendary gems socketed, but the price to rank them up is exorbitant. Each new rank requires ever-escalating gem power, which is salvaged from legendary gems you don't need, so the quantity of resources called for quickly becomes absurd.
Oh, I see.
The main way to obtain legendary gems is by powering up Elder Rifts with rare and legendary crests, and these give you a low chance and a guaranteed legendary gem drop respectively. But of course, you're as likely to see a high quality gem drop as you are to see someone high-five Bobby Kotick on the Blizzard campus. Legendary gems then are basically loot boxes behind a gameplay facade. You can tell because Elder Rifts are insultingly easy, a speed bump to be blasted through to get you to the loot box at the end. If you want to have enough legendary crests to be able to make meaningful progress towards ranking up your legendary gems, you're going to need to spend and spend big. And Diablo Immortal has no shortage of ways to do that. Special one-time bundles pop up as you progress through the story, scaling in price in a farcically villainous manner. Seems reasonable. Booah? And the value for money just isn't there. 80 Australian dollar dues and I get what? Some regular gems, 20 legendary crests, and enough eternal orbs to not quite buy another 20? Chances are I'll get some good gems, but considering it takes 50 gem power to upgrade a 5-star gem from rank 1 to 2, that amount of money really is just a drop in the upgrade ocean.
Perhaps bravery will protect you then.
Blizzard has clearly missed the mark here. I'm happy to buy into free-to-play games I enjoy, but I'm not prepared to be exploited. The least Immortal could do is be a bit more generous with legendary crests in general, and offer bundles that actually seem like they might be worthwhile. As it is, I've almost entirely opted out of this part of itemization. And the real rub when it comes to the cost of buying in is that a big chunk of Immortal's endgame is built around PvP, and players who have spent hundreds if not thousands of dollars will have a significant advantage in all of those activities. Can't even spend time instead of money, because Immortal has a number of caps in place to slow or even arrest progress for the most engaged players. Imagine getting a tiny fraction of the XP you're supposed to just because you played too much and you're not allowed to get ahead that way. Even if you grind harder difficulty levels, you may not be able to equip the items you earn if the server paragon level is too far below the level required to wear it. And you may have all the salvaging materials in the world, but be unable to rank up your items any further. Sorry, these caps won't greatly impact most players, but it does mean that there's less incentive to play a lot if you're heavily invested, which is not at all how Diablo games have worked historically, and I don't think it's a change for the better. For me personally, my progression has slowed noticeably, and watching my combat rating gradually inch closer to a figure that will make the next difficulty level more feasible is agonizing, especially since I'm trapped in a world where Hell 1 is way too easy, and Hell 2 is still too punishing.
Die and rot.
In the meantime, I'm going through the motions, doing my dailies, running the same activities over and over, waiting to be able to actually hit that next tier of gear and set items. The combat remains fun, but for a game about progression, Diablo Immortal has some seriously dull plateaus. There's a lot to like about Diablo Immortal, but it's still not a game I can heartily recommend. As a casual, purely free-to-play experience, it offers dozens of hours of empowering ARPG combat built around an interesting skill system. Whereas for those that want to be competitive, it quickly becomes restrictive, punitive, and money-grubbing. And for everyone in between, it just doesn't offer good value for money spent. If the season-long services like the Empowered Battle Pass offered more, I could definitely see myself renewing them each time and steadily working my way through the many difficulty levels as I ascend Immortal's 600 Paragon levels. And gradually, oh so gradually, rank up my legendary gems. Instead, that dream is so far out of reach that it's not actually possible. I'm still going to keep playing Diablo Immortal, but without overhauls to the monetization and the many restrictions, it's going to be a dip in, dip out game, as opposed to a world I want to live in. For more reviews, check out our verdicts on Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes and the Capcom Fighting Collection. And for everything else, you're in the right place. IGN.